You know, I don't know if it's available on the website, but if you you can private message me your email and I'll send it to you. Or actually, let me see if I can just upload it to Google Drive.
I have it saved to my desktop. I can just drop it in the chat.
Oh yeah, you can. Yes, thank you.
Here, I'll do that right now.
I forget that like you can do so many things in Zoom.
There we go.
Before I put up the backwards one.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get started in about 1 more minute. So if you can, if you're not the speaker, mute yourselves politely. Thank you.
Okay, I just put it in the chat.
Okay, so I'll get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to LACC College Pride event. We are with you in Pride. I want to thank you for taking out your time to join us today on this beautiful summer day. And I apologize, our president is having connectivity problems, but she is with us in Pride, and she may have the ability to sign in and chime in soon. So again, thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to having an awesome, amazing event. And then now I turn it over to our trustee, Velia. Go ahead, trustee.
Now I'm the one that's having audio problems. First of all, I just really want to thank everybody who's here, and in particular, the committee that set all this up. And it's really been a very, I believe, important year for LGBT rights. And hopefully once President Mary Gallagher gets online here, she'll be able to point out some of the specific advances of LA City College and the LGBT population at LA City College. But let me take you quickly on a quick just recap, and I've got about 5 minutes, about what the district is doing and what differences there has been in the past really 3 years since the appointment of me as trustee, the first LGBT person of color ever in history at the Board of Trustees. And then obviously with the movement of Black Lives Matters and the intersection of LGBT rights and equality continue to flourish today in society. And so when LACCD, met and put a mirror to itself, we realized that there were not policies that protected, that really benefited LGBTQ plus students. And so the first thing we did is we put a committee together. Some of you participate. We want to obviously, put attention to folks like yourselves, Cecilia, who's previously Cruz from East LA College, who are already working with our LGBTQ plus students to provide resources. But we put together and mandated at the district level, thanks to all of you and our Board of Trustees, who were able to put together an LGBT Bill of Rights that's detailed, and we can share it with you. And it passed unanimously to ensure that, number one, we have protections for students, safe zones, resources, monies coming in, ensuring that our LGBT plus students were able to have access to, textbooks, to, what everybody else wants. The second thing is we also took into hand our faculty that were LGBTQ plus, and we also took into consideration the ability really for the first time ever for businesses that were LGBTQ plus to be able to have the opportunity to compete at our district, to be able to do what other businesses do in regards to vendorship. So there was a lot of movement. That was step one. Step two, I'll be really proud to report that we have right now in the state legislature, thanks to Chairman Evan Lowe, the chair of the California Legislative LGBTQ plus caucus, we have a budget request that is intended to fund LGBT centers here at home at each of our colleges. Of course, LA City College is going to be one of our priorities. And we're lucky because as we move forward with our capital improvement projects to build, we're going to be talking about building specifically LGBTQ plus centers for our community. And, we're so really lucky that, we've had the opportunity to work with our dreamers and our Black Lives Matters movement to, kind of again, intersect. And so they've been lending us as LGBT students a home, in the Dream Resource Centers, but we're looking to create our own home and also at the same time uplift our other groups. And I'm happy to also say there's a budget request at the state level for the UMOJA programs and all other programs that, we're trying to, again, create that environment. Third thing is we authored an ethnic studies bill, which will include our LGBT community, including, all the other ethnicities that our district encompasses, which is, all of us. And what that ethnic studies bill would require is that in order to be able to go to or graduate our schools or grab a certificate, that we would expose our students to that. Fourth thing that I'm really excited about is we have the Fairless initiative. I don't know if you all heard of it, but it's going to help LGBT students in particular, and that's going to be basically the ability to ride Metro for free, or at least for this pilot that we're doing throughout our colleges. And we obviously want to include everyone, low income, but as long as you have an ID and you're enrolled, you'll be able to ride Metro, and that'll help our LGBT population, which are disproportionately affected by resources. And then I'm really excited to partner with people like the LA LGBT Center. We're having our first meeting with your college to be able to provide student housing opportunities and partnerships. LA LGBT Center is a premier organization that has had success actually in providing and even building homeless, well, at least housing to beat the homeless issue, and doing the partnerships like rehabbing older homes, for example, and using those as places where students can, be able to go full-time to school and live at no cost. We're also teaming up with Shower of Hope, Hoveness Inc., LA Room and Board, which I'm very proud to team up with them. We're on this Wednesday's board meeting, we're providing $200,000 for 20 students at LA Room and Board. If you're interested, please contact Cecilia or me or your president or anybody here that's organizing, because what we're going to do is we're essentially going to have these spots available for students, and they're beautiful spots. Where in particular in this LA Room and Board project, we have an old sorority house next to UCLA where we're converting into student housing opportunities. And it's not like what you think. It's extremely beautiful and modern and kept up, and it's a place where people can be proud and they can live for more than a couple of years while they get their education with us. So the movement is continuing. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how much more work there is to do. And the reality is that this couldn't have been done without all of you, our faculty. The other board of trustees have been amazing in joining. But the real important part here is to really be proud of who we are. As a leader, as sitting on the board of trustees, I get told, what is it so special about LGBT? Why are you so into it, right? And what I tell people is that why I love advocating for LGBTQ plus rights is because it's really everybody's rights. And if you see the flag in back of me, it represents every color, every origin, every socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter. Our LGBT students come from every walk of life. And for me, that's really what motivates me every day. I hope it motivates you. And that's why you all are here today to celebrate. I hope you celebrate this weekend, whatever way you want to celebrate. And again, I just want to thank you, Nairi, Kenny, Phoebe. I heard you earlier when you were, I know we're going to have a DJ, and Kenny wants to have a parade, which is awesome. Jorge, I love Andrew Christian. I just can't fit into those bathing suits anymore, baby. Maybe back in the day. But I just really appreciate you guys, and I'll be here if you need me. And thank you all so much. You're all gorgeous, you're all beautiful souls, and let's spread our love, in particular right now in these times. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Trustee Velia. And I just want to commend you
you.
on all the work you have done in the district. We see
Thanks.
the progress, and it's all about progress. Sometimes we take for granted the progress. And again, without you being, thank you so much for being a part of the district, and thank you for being us with this event.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have a video message from Chancellor Rodriguez. Thank you so much.
Francisco Rodriguez, Chancellor of the Los Angeles Community College District. I hope you're enjoying the virtual Pride events at Los Angeles City College. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today. I want to make sure that everyone heard that we as a district and as a board of trustees have taken some very definitive action steps to ensure that we're supporting and recognizing our LGBTQ students, faculty, and staff, whether it be the multiple board resolutions that we have passed, including the Bill of Rights, the convening of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee, support for our annual Lavender graduation, or the current advocacy that we're engaged in now with our governor and the state legislature for additional support for LGBTQ students. We want to make sure that this message is clear, that LACC City stands in solidarity and in allyship with our LGBTQ faculty, staff, and students at LA City College and indeed throughout the district, that we stand in solidarity and in allyship with our LGBTQ community in Los Angeles. And we want you to know that you are recognized, that you are affirmed, that we see you, that you are valued and supported at LA City College and indeed throughout the LACC City Colleges. So on behalf of the 9 college presidents, our executive staff, the board of trustees, have a good rest of your day, have great events. I'm with you in pride. We are with you in pride. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Okay, everyone. So as I stated earlier, we have a few more people to join us. President Gallagher is here with us in Pride. She's having some connectivity challenges, and I just want to introduce myself, and I want to really give you all a clear message of what the Race, Equity, and Social Justice Center is for. My work expands towards marginalized communities, and I am committed to ensuring that the Race, Equity, and Social Justice Center represents every marginalized community. Every person is welcomed at the Race, Equity, and Social Justice Center. And here with this Pride event, it was really great working with the work group, getting to know everyone. We've been online for about 15 months, right? And then so some of us on the work group have been at City for 4, 5, 7 years, right? And to really reach out with everyone and connect with everyone, it was a sense of unity and not just a sense of pride. And I commend you all. And one of the things that the work group was able to do and commit, and I challenge this campus, is to basically connect as one. Despite our differences that society place on us, we are one. We are one in unity. We are one in pride. And I want you all to know that as the director of Race, Equity, and Social Justice Center, I am with you. And please send me an email and let me know your ideas and everything that you have. Thank you so much for joining us. And now I turn it over to Phoebe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Phoebe. I'm from the Veterans Resource Center here at LACC, and it is my privilege to introduce Dilo to you today. Dilo is a queer transgender Tamil Sri Lankan American artist, actor, writer, and activist whose work ranges from stand-up comedy, solo theater, plays, film, short story, and poetry. Basically, he is a storyteller by trade, and he's been in the game for over 15 years. Dilo uses he, they pronouns, and is also a regular performer and speaker on the college university circuit. He's joining us today at LACC for our very first virtual Pride event, and I am so excited. His solo shows Rambleations, Defunct, De Facto Life, and To Tea or Not to Tea have toured festivals and theaters nationally, and his work has been written about and published in academic journals and anthologies with features in NBC, The Guardian, and The Advocate. Now, if you have time later, I do really recommend the article that was published in NBC, in which Dilo talks about his roots of growing up in Lancaster, California, finding inspiration from hip hop MCs, in fighting back against the barriers that he faced growing up as a person of color, and how he found the stage to be a sacred place, a safe place to share his stories, and how being so visible, especially as a queer person of color, can be so risky, but so worth it, and how it gives voice to a community that is so often made to feel silent, even within our own communities. And so Dilo created the Coming Out, Coming Home Writing Workshop series with South Asian and or immigrant LGBTQ organizations. And his acting credits include Looking, Transparent, Mr. Robot, Sense8, and the Issa Rae produced Minimum Wage. Currently, he has a series based on his life that is set up at BTR Media and Paul Feig's Powder Keg Media. Now, Issa Rae said that the discussion of representation is one that has been repeated over and over again. And the solution has always been up to us to support, promote, and create the images that we want to see. And in that article I referenced earlier from NBC, Dilo said that artists and queer and trans people, we're the ones who need to be at that table in order to change the conversation. And so for his work towards that mission, Dilo was most recently awarded the Artist Disruptor Fellowship through the for the Center of Cultural Performance and 50/50 by 2020, which is an initiative that was started by Joey Soloway. Let me say that one more time for y'all. The Artist Disruptor Fellowship. When I first read that, I thought that was the most punk rock thing ever. We love to see it. And Dilo is also a senior civic media fellow through USC's Annenberg School of Innovation, which is funded by the MacArthur Foundation. And so I just want to say thank you so much to Dilo and our amazing panelists today for the important work that you do, for sharing your stories and for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your stories, your lessons, your talents, your laughter and your joy. Representation is resistance, joy is resistance, all of this. And thank you most of all for sharing this space with us today. I hope that everybody in attendance can take away something good from today and find healing in the form of laughter, love, and visibility. We are here with all of you in Pride.
Wow, thank you so much. I've never heard myself being talked about so beautifully. So I want to give it up to you, Phoebe, that you putting your stank on that. I really feel honored by this. I feel honored already hearing all the speakers here today, the trustees, the chancellor, and just hearing about the good work that Dr. Berry was talking about. Like, I'm so grateful. I'm coming to you with my heart full of humility. I would like to start this off, and I'm overly excited to be invited to this post-show panel as well, where I'll be sharing with other comics and activists who I love, and Samson I've known, and I'm just so happy. I just wanted to share that with you. So before I get into my story, I wanted to just go into a land acknowledgement. It is a prayer that I call it a prayer. Anyway. I want us to remember that we are on sacred land, stripped from and stolen land that holds all the stories of violence and slavery, land that holds past and present undocumented and immigrant stories, land that knows the truth of the injustices no matter how many times history gets rewritten. Where I am, this land is the land of the Tongva people. In my life and arts practice and on this land, I strive to behave and act in alignment and accordance with what Indigenous people, the original stewards of this land, are asking of me. I also acknowledge the sadness that Native peoples have over the loss and destruction of their land. And on this land and what it remembers, I stand with and upon the shoulders of a great many. I want to honor the fierce, the fighters, the writers, the truth seekers, the teachers, mentors, and spiritual elders, the Indigenous, Black, brown, and queer folks, the folks who came from harder and harsher pasts and still found a way to fight for me, their future. I want to remember so I don't fall victim to worry, victim to isolation. I want to remember that I can move mountains with community, that I get strong in community. I want to remember that I'm most powerful with community and that my magic is magnified in community. I want to remember that there are folks who couldn't be here. There are folks who couldn't be here. There are folks who couldn't be here. And I want to remember that my time with you is therefore sacred, that whatever freedoms I have been fought for, and that 60 years ago, I might not have had the chance to be me on stage or on these Zooms with you. And our bodies, like water and land, they remember. And I want to honor your bodies as places where kisses and bruises have been planted. I want to honor all the ways you've changed for your freedom and all the ways you've fought for others' freedom. And so today I share the ongoing story of finding my own truth and freedom, working from the inside out. And I hope that in hearing some of my story and thoughts, you will recognize your own stories, victories, strengths, and your own journey. And you will remember that what you have survived to bring you into this moment and all the precious lessons you carry as a result, which help move you forward into the next chapters of your life. Thank you. So a little bit about me. I am transgender. It's been about 6 years since I've been on testosterone, which is why I sound like Drake on autotune. I wanted to show you a little picture of what I look like when I was here. There are some perks and pains to passing as male, okay? Some of the perks are that I'm happier now. I'm physically stronger and people listen to me more. Some of the pains are that men are unkind to one another. Yep, that's about it. And this is where I usually go around and tell people, look, if you know a trans person or you're about to know a trans person, please do not ask us about our genitalia. Trans people are beautiful, magical human beings. Do not reduce us to the junk underneath our clothing. And having said that, I know some of y'all are wondering whether or not I might be having a penis. And no, I do not have a penis. I have 3. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. The dirty set, you're going to have to come to the club to see me at. Okay, so this is what I looked like when I was young. I'm trying to find, it's like it's actually, you know, that arm there is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's. Here, this is back in the day. I just thought I'd show you Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I grew up looking like a dude. And, you know, the thing is, I came from a very immigrant family. My parents are Tamil, Sri Lankan, from Sri Lanka, and they came here. And they came during the brain drain, what is colloquially called that, is when the US was inviting people from other countries who were of professional backgrounds. So I have the class privilege of having come from a father who was a doctor, was trained in Sri Lanka, came to Queens, and he then moved our family. My sister was born on the island, and then we moved to Lancaster, California. Lancaster, I don't know if many of you all know the place, but when I was growing, it's a bustling city now, Lancaster, Palmdale, but back then it was super, super duper hick. I mean, it's still hick in a lot of different places. Very, very white and hick, like, and we didn't have stoplights back then. I am dating myself, I am older, but you know, it was stop signs everywhere. It's dust, tumbleweeds, cows, rodeo, the KKK. Okay, so the KKK established its first West Coast church in Lancaster. That's a little bit of the legacy, which is why you feel an air of racism there. So growing up, my father and my mother were both like, you know, because of the troubles, or what we called it the troubles, but it's the war, the civil war in Sri Lanka, there was always this sort of like anxiety to be too loud in our culture. So Tamil people's lives have been infringed upon from even pre-independence from the British, on top of all the different colonizers that had come there. So I was taught, like, don't make any noise, just do your work and get by and you're gonna be fine. so then we get to Lancaster, and in my little mind, growing up listening to the stories about like what was happening to people on the island, we had migrated pre-war, so that my immediate family wasn't affected, but our people back there were. And you know, being in Lancaster, my father was also like, you know, we didn't come to this country for you to play a fool. You know, like, you're gonna study and you're gonna keep your head down and you're going to just get by. And like, you know, immigrants are also like, you know, we like to recreate what it was like on the motherland, but here in the US, like, immigrants love doing that. Like, we had our own sustainable garden before it was chic, you know, bartering with other aunties and uncles. There were so many Sri Lankans there in Lancaster. We called the city Sri Lancaster. And you know, we had this bustling community. So the effects of racism to a certain degree were mitigated by the fact that we had our community, we had our people, but that messaging was always there. Like, just be quiet, don't say nothing, like, just keep your head down low. Now, meanwhile, I'm also super queer, like many of us here, like super, you know, cape and all, you know, and Lancaster is the best breeding ground to create super queers, because everybody I know who's come from Lancaster has been extra queer. So, so, you know, I'm this little dude, you know, assigned female at birth, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like, you know, I know that who I am is good, but like, the messaging that I'm getting from out there is that, you know, immigrants aren't loved, Black folks aren't loved. It's only going to be good for you if you're white or white adjacent, assimilation, that kind of thing. Like, even at a young age, I was picking up on all of this stuff. And I was like, you know, and on top of that, in my 4th grade class, I heard that being queer was not the jam. I heard that, you know, I went to a very Baptist school. I don't know why my Hindu ass ended up going to a Baptist school, but that's what happened. And so they were talking about homosexuality and how it was like, you know, a sin. And, you know, at that time I was a confused Christian too, because I was like, I don't want to burn in hell. I'm going to ask Jesus to come into my heart 2 times, just cover my bases. And so I was like, I was closeted, of course, but I also felt like, why was I like, I didn't feel wrong. Again, I didn't feel wrong. I felt like I was a good person. I felt like, you know, and then when I kind of got into the nitty gritty, I was like, oh, they're talking about a man loving a man or a woman loving a woman, but that's not even me. That was like, I mean, little did I know that's also my queer phobia, by sort of distancing myself from what I understood to be queerness outside of my transness. I'm talking about this like a little kid. I didn't know any of this stuff, okay? I was watching Maury Povich and I saw this guy, a trans guy, being ridiculed on the show, and that stuck my ass back in the closet, right? At a young age, I was like, oh, people don't like us, you know? So anyway, I'm growing up and I'm just kind of, you know, again, getting by. And then the worst thing ever happens. I get my period. I know y'all feel me. If you got y'all know that wasn't the jam, and it's still not the jam. You know what I'm saying? But I remember being I was 11 years old, and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, this is going to change everything. I knew that my parents did really expect me to stop playing with boys, to stop wearing boy clothes, to stop doing all this stuff that was just my freedom as a young person, right? And I was terrified. I remember, and on top of that, I didn't really understand what the period was good for. Nobody had given me the talk of the birds and bees. I remember my sister had to give me that talk. She was like, you know, don't worry, you know, it's okay that you're bleeding. I was like, how long does this last? She's like, oh, you know, just a couple of days every month for the rest of your life. I was like, oh, good God. And then she was like, you know, but you know, this means that, you know, now you can get married and you can have children. I was like, what the hell does my period have to do with marriage and children? And she was like, oh my God, nobody told you? I was like, told me what? And she was like, okay, I have to tell you. And she tells me, excuse my graphicness around this. Is it graphicness? That's a new word. Thank you. she was like, okay, Dilo, you know how you have 3 holes, right? You have your pippy hole, your cucka hole, and your baby hole. And your baby hole is where the guy puts his thing up in there and he makes a baby and it comes out. And I was like, you're crazy. Who told you that? Something's wrong with you. You better not let Amen Uppa hear that you're talking like this because, and then she's like, no, it's natural. We all have to have sex. And I was like, no, we don't. Amen Uppa told us it's bad to have sex. And she was like, well, like, how do you think we got here? Amen Uppa had sex. I was like, I'm still appalled to this day that my parents had sex. Anyway, so fast forward to 2 years later, I'm 13 years old and I am miserable. I've already run away. I've already, tried to figure out a way to get out of Lancaster. And because I knew that it would be too much for my immigrant parents to know that their child was a queer. And when I think back on that, I'm like 11, 12, I look at my nieces and nephews who are of that same age, and I'm like, they should never be making big decisions on their life, And yet when it comes to the things that young queer kids are going through, like, I just ask people, just listen to them and just shush up. So anyway, 13 years old, I'm miserable. I am, donning femme drag at this point. I'm wearing all of my sister's clothes. And then she passes away. She passes away in a tragic accident at LAX where a DC-10 landed on the same runway as a small plane before it took off. And this devastated my parents, devastation. And for me as a young person, I was so sad, but I was also so angry at her for passing because I was like, now I was relying on her to like do everything right so that I could, not have to do everything right. And I felt really alone. And my parents, they never talked to me about what sibling grief was. So I just kind of kept going on with my life, acting as if nothing big really happened. Also, the messaging that I was getting was that, oh, you have to be strong for your parents, not really identifying the fact that I too could be holding a lot of sadness. So I kind of pushed it away by accident. And, nobody's telling us to go to therapy. Nobody's telling us to talk about these things. So like, there's just this heavy, dark cloud over our house, right? And then like, of course, I'm like, whatever I can do to survive this time, like, yes, there's suicidal ideation because it's not just queerness, it's also like depression. It's also not knowing certain things at a young age. But I clocked in my mind, I was like, if by the time that I'm 30 and things are not good for me, I'll just kill myself. And that wasn't a sad thing for me to say that. That was like, it's probably not going to be in this lifetime that things get better. So, just do over. In Hinduism, we believe in reincarnation. So anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking about. And so what the best part, and Phoebe already mentioned this, but like so at around 11, 12, there was an angel came to me by way of a Yo MTV Raps video. I was so smitten by the MCs coming from the East Coast. And we were in Lancaster. Back then, we didn't get radio stations that were from LA. So I didn't actually grow up listening to West Coast hip hop. I grew up listening mostly to East Coast. And in East Coast hip hop, a lot of the MCs had taken on more African roots names as their MC names. And I didn't, at a young age, understand that these Black folks were not immigrants. I thought, oh, Queen Latifah, she's amazing. That's an immigrant name. She's African. I'm an immigrant. She's talking about people, the issues that are affecting her people. I want to do that. So in a weird, twisted way, and by accident, I might have culturally appropriated. But I was really like, this is an immigrant thing, hip hop, and it's an American thing. And this is what I want to do. I want to share about my communities. I want to write, I want to share. I love rhyme. I love hip hop, everything, right? So that's that was kind of like the beginnings of my career. I think that even at a young age and being a little bit more aware of the fact that this hip hop was Black music, I would like to think that I wasn't culturally appropriated. I know I made a joke before then, but you can see what I did and you can call me out on it later. The path away from ignorance is to just keep learning about how you're showing up. So, what happened was that with hip hop and with art and with the ways that I wanted to show up in the world, I was like, this is the one thing that I have that can help me get through all of this madness, until I knew I had to go to college. And so again, this is high school it was okay because I survived it. But outside of that, I ended up going really internal, really relying on my jokes and art to sort of kind of get me by. And I get to college, and college is like where everybody can just be openly gay, right? So slowly and slowly my hair started getting shorter again. I started wearing more boy clothes again, and I just started feeling like I was in my skin. And then I started doing really important solidarity work with artist organizers that were organizing not in college but in the community. And so I was taught in this time by feminists of color and communists. Love me some communists, because I just really got schooled in what it meant to be a worker for the people, and what it meant to show up for other communities. So a lot of the work that we did was around police brutality, political prisoners, AIDS, where a lot of my work even then was about these larger social issues, right? So social justice issues. And it came about 2 months before I graduated, and my father gives me a call and he's like, Dilo, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing, Appa, what's happening? I wanted to tell you we found 2 men for you. I was like, 2 men for me? What for? It's like, oh, you don't know what the hell you're going to do after college. You have to get married. I was like, you're trying to ring up. I'm getting off the phone. But he's like, no. What's the problem? There are 2 doctors in North Carolina. I was like, no, Abba, really, I'm good. Thank you. Okay, bye. What's the problem? Huh? You have a boyfriend? I was like, no, I don't have a boyfriend. He's like, then what's the problem? Huh? They're 2 brothers and you can pick which one you want. I was like, thank you. That's very feminist of you, but no, thank you. Okay. He was like, what? Do you have a girlfriend? I was like, see, what had happened was she's like, what are you trying to tell me? You're gay? You're not gay. I know you're not gay. Are you gay? Appa, I think you're asking a question you don't really want to know the answer to. No, I know you're not gay. You are not gay. Don't tell me you're gay. I know you're not gay. Are you gay? I was like, yes, Appa, I'm gay. He's like, you're not gay. Click. Back then you could click down a phone, like smash it. Felt so satisfying. These days you can't do that with your cell phone. You're out $1,000. 10 minutes later, my mother gives me a call. She's like, Dilo, so Appa just told me something. Oh God. I was like, Amma, what? Dilo, is it true? Are you a gay? I was like, yes, Amma, I'm a gay. Okay, so who else knows that you're a gay? I was like, Amma, pretty much everybody but you. She was like, how do they know? I was like, have you seen me? Needless to say, this was a very, very difficult time in their lives and mine. But of course, again, in true form and fashion, I cared more about how they were feeling than my own feelings. So I was like, you know what? I just need to get away. And that's been kind of an MO of mine. Ran away when I was younger, ran away to New York to do organizing work and to create distance between us. So I was there, and then I started working with a lot of artists, amazing, incredible queer artists who were challenging me about my own work. Because at this time, I wasn't I moved out to New York, but I was trying to act like nothing was bothering me. Meanwhile, I was writing all these poems about bigger issues, like I said, but not really writing about me and my life. And they were like, D, we've been through so much as your queer elders. We just are asking you to be more vulnerable and get into your work a little bit more. Spend some time reflecting about what is actually your narrative, what is no longer serving you. Like basically really amazing advice that was slow. I was slow to roll to. And I started writing from that point forward more of my personal history and more about my gender and my sexuality. And it was actually through writing these stories and this work that I came into a better understanding of self. And this work was also very much resonating with large communities of people, not just immigrant communities, not just people of color, but like everybody. And so I understood that there was a power in that vulnerable story, and that if I am following in the footsteps of people who have really looked out for me in a way that they've seen all of me, then I need to stand true and walk with integrity and my truth. So I'm going to fast forward because I think I know that we started late, so I just want to be mindful of time. Initially, I said that I would stop at 2:20, but I wanted to know if there was wiggle room around this so that I don't upset the rest of the programming.
Yes, you 2:20 is good, but I'm so impressed and just thrilled with your show. So yeah, wiggle room is fine.
Okay, I'll try and keep it within that frame.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I just want to be respectful because I know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Berry. So anyway, during this time, I'll just get into this part of the story, and I'll skip over the middle part. But I really was grappling with and not well with what was my truth. How do I need to honor my parents as elders, and also like, but really like this journey of honoring my own self and my own journey. This is still constant, because I think that queer people were taught not to take up space. We're taught that, or we're not taught, we're messaged that we don't belong. So with that messaging, we kind of internalize it. And that's where the internalized homophobia and queerphobia, transphobia come into play. Internalized racism, same thing. So I ended up going from, really trying to walk with my truth in an artistic fashion, to then going back to my parents' house and engaging them in the conversation. And I tell queer people this all the time, like, if you feel like your parents or your loved ones or your guardians or your families of any, if you feel like there's like love there, but maybe they don't understand, it might be worth it to engage them in the conversation. Because what I did was I would go to see my blood family, engage them with the conversation. And then the minute that things got nutty, which happened very quickly, I would run back to my chosen family, because there's where I got built up. And when I got strong again is when I would go back. And it was this constant traveling back and forth between blood family and chosen family. But I say to cis and straight people, that's a lot of work for queer people to take on. And you don't want your beloveds to be crumpled pieces. You get what I'm saying? Like, you want them to be standing strong. So make it easier. Do your work is what I say to cis and straight people. Just do your work. Do your work if you ever want to be an ally, right? Just pause, listen, shush up, and do your work, right? Show up with love. But anyway, at this time, they couldn't show up with their love for me. And which is often the case with a lot of queer people. And so I just, at some point, I was like, it came at a crossroads of, I know that I'm trans. I know that I want to be on a journey that includes medical things, but the messaging that I'm even getting from feminists is like, we don't want you to be a man. Who you are is a defiance, or is a pardon my French, a fuck you to the patriarchy, and that you are perfect as you are, and you don't need to change, and you don't need to be on this journey. And if, oftentimes I'd be told, like, if the world was open, would you have even medically transitioned? And I'm like, I can't even answer that question, because the world wasn't open. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, I was trying to be like, what is my truth? Like, why do I keep thinking that I'm going to let somebody down if I actually take charge of my own happiness, right? So I go to Bali because I channeled my inner white woman, and I went to get my Eat, Pray, Love on. And no, it was an artist residency in Bali that I was like honored to receive. And I went there, and we were in the village with all Balinese folks, and learning from these incredible musicians and artists, incredible. And part of the whole thing was just to kick it with everybody. And I was watching how the men were, and the men were incredible. They were, I mean, I'm not trying to say this from like an outside, like I know that there's some voyeurism here, but what I'm saying is that the men cooked together. They took care of the children together. They wore flowers in their hair. They held hands. This is the stuff that I saw in Sri Lanka too, you know? There was a softness to the masculinity, and it was beautiful. And I was like, yes, if I choose to medically transition and I pass more as male, I will be beautiful. I will be all the things. I will not be toxic. I will not, I mean, we all have some toxicity in us, but I will fight to not be that way. There is a beautiful masculinity out there that I want so badly to have for myself, to have peace, to have happiness, whatever it is, right? And so the minute I came back, I went to get my consult for top surgery, and then I got top surgery. And in the time in between, because my mother wasn't talking to me, my father was a little bit, but that was also difficult. I knew I had to come out the third time. I didn't go to my second story, but basically from the second coming out, that was kind of what broke my relationship with my family. So on this third one, I was like, you know what, I'm older. I found a partner. I am going to tell my parents that I had top surgery, and maybe this is just this one time I check in with them and I see where they're at. And then from there, I'll either like bounce hard or I'll just wait another 10 years or whatever. And so I came back to my mother's house, and she was cooking tofu. And I said, Amma, I have to get two things. I have to tell you two things, and you're not going to like it. In fact, you're going to get nutty. But I really have to tell you. And she was cooking. She's like, no, don't tell me. But I have to tell you. I have to get this off my chest. Get it? That was my top surgery joke. Okay, so I said to her, you know, look, I have to tell you. And she was like, I already know. I was like, what do you know? She's like, I already know that you have a girlfriend. I was like, I do. Are you okay with that? She's like, yeah, she's cooking. And then I said, but the second thing is the one that you're really going to get nutty for. And she was like, I already know. I was like, you don't know this one, trust me. She's like, I know that you're planning on having a surgery. I was like, kind of, Amma. I already had the surgery. She was like, you already had? Are you okay? Don't take the injection. I was like, injection? Why is she talking about that? Did she do Trans 101 when I wasn't paying attention? And she was like, who was with you? And I was like, Amma, it was Thambi and Nushi. They were with me. And she's like, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm okay. And silence. And then I thought, this is the calm before the storm. Pretty soon there's going to be tofu flying over the fucking kitchen. So I came around to her and I said, Amma, are you sure you're okay? And she was like, I need ginger. She needs ginger. I was like, okay, look, okay, we're going to get in the car. We're going to go to Trader Joe. We get to Trader Joe, right? And I'm tripping. I just come out to my mother. Again, the third time. She's looking out the window acting like everything's fine, even though she had stopped talking to me prior to that. So we get to the Trader Joe and we get the ginger, but we can't find her hot cocoa, and she's running low, and she's a fiend for that Trader Joe hot cocoa. So I asked her to talk to the clerk, Trader Joe, And so she goes up there to ask him. Meanwhile, I look in the back to see if I can find the hot cocoa. And I finally find it on the far shelf on the very bottom. I don't know why I was there. And I'm looking up and down the aisles to see if my Alma is around. And I cannot find her. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of reversed. Now she's going to be crumpled up crying, looking for, wondering where her kid went. And then I see her near the hot cocoa. And I came up to her and I pick up the hot cocoa. I say, Alma, no, I got it for you already. Don't worry. And she looks up at Trader Joe. And she looks at me and she looks back at Trader Joe and she goes, oh, see, don't worry. He already got it for me. And I was like, Alma, you just called me he. And I gave her the biggest hug. And I was like, Alma, I can't. You just called me he. And it was the first time I hugged her, like because I hadn't hugged her and I had top surgery and I was worried, like all of this thing. And she said, you're confusing me. And she slapped me in the Trader Joe, because that's what immigrants do. But I say all of this to say that it's been a long journey with my family, a long one. And I always think about this too, because I feel like our conversations of race aren't as quick to change as queer conversations are, because everybody has a queer cousin now. And everybody's still segregated race-wise, you know what I'm saying? And I am praying that this journey and this long of a journey I am praying that the times have changed. I am praying that there is not pushback, but I do know that there is pushback. So I'm just gonna end with this. I'm just saying, all my queer people, our strength is in community. That if there's nothing else that I tell you today, our strength is in our community, because I know that I would not have been able to survive this journey were it not for my people, were it not for loving, beautiful people, other queer people who are teaching me through their own resilience how to walk in life. They are my teachers, my own peers. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for being my community. Thank you for letting me share. And I'm so happy to get into this Q&A. And I went 5 minutes past, but I hope we're still on time.
Yes, we are. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story, Dilo. I'm just blown away by your story, and just knowing how you've overcome, and the part about community. Community is so important. Oftentimes we live in silos, we work in silos, and we forget that we all are one and we need help in community. And before we transition into the Q&A, we're going to give you a little time to take your breath and reflect. And we're going to show this video clip of how the history of the LGBTQ plus community and the history of how it all began. And so I'll turn it over to you, Camille or Evan.
Hi there.
Who, me?
Yeah, you seem like an average guy.
Well, I love smoothies and drive a Prius, if that's what you mean.
Exactly. Quick question. Have you ever thought how your life might be different if you were gay?
Not really. I guess it would be a little harder. Wait, was that homophobic? Oh God, I'm really sorry.
This is a safe space, Carl.
My name is Mark.
Whatever. You're right, though. Being gay has its challenges, but it hasn't always been like this.
Like the Greeks?
Absolutely. The earliest evidence of gay relationships is from ancient Greece, although that was mostly about older and younger men. Did you know Socrates was in the closet?
I didn't. I also didn't know they had closets back then. When did all the crazy homophobia start?
Homophobia seemed to start in the church during the High Middle Ages.
Whoa.
And in the Renaissance, it got even worse.
What happened?
Well, if you were outed, let's just say it would have been bad.
Ah!
There were still plenty of brave people who revolted. On August 31st, 1512, a group of young aristocrats living in Florence staged what many consider history's first gay rights demonstration. But that didn't stop homophobia from migrating to colonial America. In 1776, being gay in any of the Puritan colonies was not allowed.
Jeez. So when did things start to change for the better?
It wasn't until the 20th century that we started to see progress. Gay bars were popping up in major cities, but were frequently raided by the police because being gay was still illegal in every state except Illinois.
Go Bears.
Exactly. One of these bars was the popular Stonewall Inn in New York City. On the morning of June 28, 1969, which also happened to be the day of Judy Garland's funeral, the patrons of the Stonewall Inn decided they weren't going to take it.
Hell yeah.
A Black transgender woman named Marsha P. Johnson is credited with leading the uprising that started the modern gay rights movement and putting the T in LGBT. Now, every November, the T's and their supporters recognize Transgender Awareness Week.
This is great. It seems like things were going pretty well.
For a while.
A while? What happened next?
Well, in the early 80s, the world was hit by the AIDS epidemic, and the gay community was hit hardest. AIDS became known as a gay disease. In fact, it was originally called GRID, which means gay-related immune deficiency.
No way.
It's true. Many people think that the government didn't act quickly enough because it was considered a gay disease. So the LGBTQ community had to fight it themselves.
So how did they fight it?
They got organized. Activist groups like ACT UP, the Gay Men's Health Crisis, Lesbian AIDS Project, and the Names Project emerged and refused to be ignored. This newly empowered gay community had one goal.
What was that?
To come out. They thought the problem with homophobia was that people didn't know other people who were gay. And if more people came out, they would be seen for who they are and not just as a stereotype. Convincing people to come out was still a tough task, but things got easier in 1997 when Ellen appeared on the cover of Time magazine and told the world, "Yep, I'm gay." After that, more and more gay people started appearing in TV and movies, helping millions feel more confident to love who they want.
Wow, what a journey. I'm kind of digging myself as a gay person.
Slow down. We're not done just yet.
But we've come so far. Can we just celebrate for a minute?
No time for that, Carl. We still have a lot of laws to change.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Being gay was more accepted, but there were still a lot of rights that gay people didn't have. However, they did have something they didn't have before.
What?
Allies. Yeah, in 2003, Massachusetts became the first state to legalize marriage equality. And 12 years later, it was legal in all 50 states, much in thanks to a majority of Americans who supported it. So as a gay person living in 2019, how would you feel?
Pretty happy I live in the present, grateful for all the heroes who fought before me, and hopeful for the future.
I'm glad, because the fight for equality is still going. It takes a village, and we're gonna need your help.
Wonderful. That was a great video. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are enjoying this virtual Pride. My name is Anya Ellis, and I have the great pleasure of moderating today's panel. First, I just want to give it up one more time to D-Lo. That was a powerful story. I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of us learned a lot. So what's better than one comedian? Two comedians, all right? I'd like to bring on our first panelist, Samson McCormick. Samson is actually the first queer comedian to perform at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and is also an actor, an independent filmmaker. Welcome, Samson. And then also rounding out our panel today, we have I don't know if you guys have seen this show, HBO's Legendary, but we have season 1 winner, Jamari Amor Balmain. And he's also a community organizer at Reach LA, a local nonprofit tasked with engaging and empowering young LGBT people of color and their communities. Please join me in welcoming our panel. Great, great, great. Welcome, everybody. I see Samson's off of mute. Jamari's off of mute. Great, great. All right, so what I want to start with is I saw Jamari and Samson had a opportunity to take in D-Lo's set. So I just want to know, do you guys have any questions or anything that comes to mind for D-Lo before I get into my prepared questions?
Not really.
Okay.
He pretty much answered everything.
Okay. And I know, Samson, you know D-Lo, so you may not have any questions, but what was
Well,
your
yeah,
takeaway?
I know D-Lo. So the only question I got for D-Lo is where that $50 you owe me. I gave you $50. No, I'm just no, everything was great and self-explanatory. And I just want to say happy Pride, everybody.
Wonderful, wonderful. And just as a quick note, we did invite another panelist, so you might have seen it on the flyer, Erica Hart. Unfortunately, scheduling conflicts prevented her from joining us this evening. So it is this afternoon. So it's so I like to get things kind of started. We're gonna get into like, you know, what's specific to all of our panelists in just a moment. But I like to start with like hot topics to kind of see where people are with what's going on now. So as you guys might have heard, Carl Nassib made history as the first active openly gay NFL player. Congratulations to him. Our panel discussion is about pride and color. So I want to ask the panelists, does anyone feel that the work and legacy of Jason Collins or Michael Sam, if they were treated differently than the coming out of Carl Nassib?
Oh, well, I'll start. You know, he was treated differently. You know, white gay contributions are treated a lot differently than Black queer contributions, or Black gay, or whatever we call. You know, it's just apparent. And now, and it took that was like 6 or 7 years ago that Michael Sam came out. And it's like now people are starting to give him the sort of respect and support and uplifting him the way they should have been back then, in a way that I think would have sustained him, because he succumbed to the pressure of being an out Black gay man in the NFL because he lacked support from his family and the community.
For sure, for sure. And this raises a great point. Has anybody on the panel experienced inter-community racism? And I'll go ahead and go to Jamari for this one.
Not that I know of. I'm pretty like well-rounded when it comes to like just race that I endure myself with. So I really don't know if I do, but I doubt it.
Okay, so you doubt it, but also you acknowledge that, you know, some aggressions might be so micro that they go under your radar. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes.
Cool. And what about you, D-Lo?
I feel like there's definitely been racism towards people of color from white gay folks. You know what I'm saying? I noticed it actually. I thought that, you know, when I naively, when I came out, I didn't understand the community politics, but I remember going to West Hollywood when I was a youngster and definitely feeling like we didn't belong in some of the white gay establishments that were there, or even in West Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like queer folks of color, especially like studs and like, meaning stud is a word for butch folks of color. That's what I was saying. But like we had parties or clubs that were just for us, and because we weren't catered to in these other places, and fights would break out too. Fights would break out between white people and people of color all the time, and so I felt like, you know, even in community spaces, there was very clear understandings of the race politics there, which was unfortunate, because I was like, oh dang, like this is not the jam. This is not what I wanted, and it kind of made me more be like kind of almost distance me from those mainstream communities, and just made me, because I felt safer. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I don't know what the club scene is like. And now, though I do have a lot of gay boy friends of mine who like tell me that some of the stuff is still the same, and some of the old queens, as they call it, still, you know, that mentality is still there or whatever. But yeah, that's just been my experience.
For sure. And I think a lot of it also, from the instances I've heard, a lot of that kind of has to do with the dating aspect, because, you know, we're talking about, sexuality. And so what about you, Samson? Have you in your professional, personal life, experienced an aggression within the LGBT community that you believe is attributed to color?
Of course, it's been through work. I'm not even gonna get into that. It's definitely been like on the apps and things like that. You get on the apps, and I'm gonna just, for the people who are watching, I'm real blunt. I don't know how to be anything other than blunt. Just say it like it is. So you'll get on the apps or whatever, and little white gay guys will be on there, and they'll hit you up, and they'll be like, "Yeah, hey, daddy, I want some of that big black cock," and you'd be like, "Ain't no chickens over here." And they'd be like, "I want some of that big black cock," and you'd be like, "You ain't getting none of this, whatever you want over here." And so then they will call you the N-word and they will block you, or say you sleep with one. Like I remember one time, because I used to like white guys. I slept with one time, and I had a little thing going, and I noticed that we would have this really hot and steamy relationship behind closed doors. But whenever I would go to the Green Lantern in DC and he would be with his other white friends, he wouldn't even look at me. So it's stuff like that. And then, I found out he would be making racist jokes and things like that. And it finally came out later on when, I was young and stupid. I kept messing with him. And he wanted to like be dominated. He told me I wasn't aggressive enough and things like that. He was like, "That's why I'm with somebody black, because I want to be dominated." And I was like, whoa. So you experience it a lot.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what I really appreciate about the panel here is that, you guys gave all different answers to that question with a variety of different experiences. Now, because I know a little bit about a number of you guys, I think I understand why. So D'Lo spoke about creating, spaces for empowerment. And so Jamari is the father of the House of Balmain, and is a icon or a luminary in the ballroom community. In addition to the the pageantries and the shows that you see, behind the scenes of that is a kind of like a family structure. Could you speak to that, Jamari?
Well, I guess you get to see a lot of that on polls. You get to see the family aspect of what ballroom is. I think for me personally, it became a safe space for younger youth to be able to express themselves without judgment. And also it became a place where I could nurture younger generations of Black, queer, LGBT community youth to help them grow as far as like what they want to do as far as their career. I've been very successful with my dance career, and a lot of them are dancers. So it's been an amazing journey. It has its ups and its downs. I've had to, talk my kids through, coming out. I had to talk my kids through finding out their status. It's just a lot that comes through that we don't get to have those type of experiences with our biological parents that you have with your gay parents. So it's just been very rewarding to be able to like help with the younger generation and keep them focused. I recently had a son come out to me yesterday with his status, and he was really in a very, very dark place. And I really felt it was my duty to make sure that he was okay. And just being a part of the ballroom community, like back in the day, it was based on family. I guess now it's been more glorified because of it's become mainstream. So a lot of people are losing the aspect of the family part of being a part of the ballroom community. And a lot of them are just becoming a little more as far as like socialites, so to speak. So it has become a slight change as far as like being able to be efficient parents to the kids, because a lot of the times nowadays, like people are just so busy focusing on themselves that they're not focusing on their kids. Like I've just been raised not only through my gay parents, but through my biological parents, to always be loving, caring, and nurturing. And so I've just have not lost that. And being the parent of the West Coast chapter of Balmain has been fulfilling, because I'm watching my kids that I had from the start be able to become more like me and do what I'm doing for the younger generations that are coming in now. So I've just been able to watch myself like nurture a young group, turn them into adults, so where they can do what I'm doing on a different platform, because the younger generation is different. This generation has become the social media like generation, so they don't know how to socialize. So it's kind of hard to socialize with them because you can't have a conversation unless you text. They'd rather text you than have a verbal conversation with you these days. So that has been challenging, trying to just like, I make my kids, we have like a social media like week where you're not allowed to be on social media. No Instagram, no Facebook, no nothing. The only time you're allowed to talk is when you call, you can't text. So we do that like ever so often for like a week, and they all die.
Really quickly, I just want to follow up with you on one thing is how, so this influence that you're able to have over, young queer people. I know some ballroom houses, they offer scholarships. What kind of initiatives, does Balmain do?
So it depends on the chapter. Every chapter is different depending on the state. My chapter, especially with the organization I work with, we develop different ways to help depending on what it is they want to do in life. So if you want to go to school, we get them connected to, depending on what school, what type of school they want to go to. We have people that we have a makeup and a culinary company that we deal with if they want to do makeup or hair, or if they want to get into culinary. So we have a lot of branches of different people that we link them to. As far as that, as far as education, we definitely push for education. So especially in my chapter, if you come in, you have to be in school or working. I don't allow you to be a part of the house if you do not have those. And if you are working towards that, you will work towards it. And once you do, I'll allow you to be in. So we just have different connections, especially that I work with HLA, that, we are able to provide different services for whatever they want to do as far as their careers.
Awesome. And we'll circle around in just a bit before we get to the Q&A portion and talk about Reach LA a little bit more. Dilo, so you were talking about your chosen family and blood family. And I've heard that phrases and terminology before. Me and Jamar, we just kind of went into that a bit, but how starkly, like how clear you were able, like how you worded is kind of like, well, everyone has a blood family and everyone has this, alternate family that should be held in the same regard. Did you use that language around your blood family, and was there any feelings of displacement from any of them?
I think that I remember when my partner and I had our commitment ceremony, and my parents, as much as they loved us too, they were very nervous about being public about it. And I think that I told my father for the first time, like, I just want you to know that if you come in and you're disrespectful to the people who are coming here to celebrate us, I just want you to know that you might be nervous and you might feel like, the pressure or the whatever fear he had around us being queer and celebrating our queerness and our love. But I was like, if it weren't for these people, I would not be here. I would not be alive. You wouldn't have your child. You would have lost both of us. Do you get what I'm saying? And in a lot of different ways, and I feel this very strongly, probably now more than ever, that chosen fam is there to help you live, like if you can't invest in your relationships, you're gonna be isolated. You're gonna, like, it's a two-way street with chosen family. You know what I'm saying? Whereas with blood, like, there's that thing like, oh, they're gonna put up with me. But like, that's actually more of a toxic way of looking at relationships in general. We need to break from blood family in a lot of different ways, you know? So in those ways, I feel like, I'm not saying everything is all golden and merry with chosen family, just as it isn't with blood family. But when you are choosing to be family with someone, it's almost like I almost revere that relationship more than I do certain blood relationships, or more than a lot of blood relationships, because those relationships are, there was a choice from both sides. And those relationships, when you really find people who are like, I see you, they're the longest relationships I've ever had in my life that have helped me, right? Like 20 years, you know? So, so I hope I answered your question.
You certainly did. And also, Phoebe is adding a lot of context to what we're discussing. So if you're not familiar with the ballroom scene, Paris is Burning is a great documentary to make yourself abreast. You can also follow Dilo and our other panelists on the Instagrams that she provided. So if you aren't checking out the chat, please do. And also, we're going to open this up to questions. So, you know, please get those ready in your mind. So Samson, continuing on with family and choosing who you're with and whatnot. Since the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, I've been, you know, I've come into contact with a lot of people who want instructions, almost like a manual on allyship. What do you say? I'm going to just turn it over to you and ask you, how can people, how can you articulate or create better allies of people out there? So say I needed help in like I'm exhausted about, you know, how can someone comes to me to say, how can I be an ally? I don't have the words. Give me the words that I would give to them.
Are we talking about a white person or a non person of color?
Well,
or
you know,
if you Black and talking about you being an ally, all you need to do is just take a nap because we tired. So there's that.
Well, no. So sometimes, right? So you may need an ally. You know, it might be a white person to be an ally, as you know, that kind of traditional sense. I found that the cisgender identity has opened up like some back channel allyship with heterosexual men. And so they don't necessarily it doesn't have to be a race thing, but we are talking pride and color. So it's the intersection of all those things.
I mean, you said George Floyd, so I was just, you know, we can go wherever you want to go.
Yeah, so when someone asks you how can they be a better ally, how can they come to earn a significant invite to the barbecue, if you will, how do they do that? And it could be the gay barbecue or the Black barbecue.
Oh, okay, so if it's the Black barbecue, white people don't bring no potato salad because we don't like raisins. I'm just playing. So, okay, so I think the most effective way to be an ally really is to listen. Once you listen, you are able to hear what the challenges of those communities are. And if you are actively listening, you'll be able to take the things that those communities need, whether they're Black or they're queer, and respond accordingly. And I think it really does come down to being human enough to be of service, and as simple as that. And if you want to give us some money, you know, cash app us a write-a check. You can do that.
For sure. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the president today signed a bill designating Pulse nightclub as a federal memorial. And so I want to hold that moment. And as we open up for the panel, I just kind of wanted to ask for a final thought before we open up to the panel is, what would you before you came out and knowing everything that you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self? And we'll start with Dila.
Oh, I would tell my younger self that I would say you will get to kiss the person that you love. And I would say you have that to look forward to. And then I would say, like, actually, it will, like, the longer you stay around and the more you're invested in your life, the better it might get for you, you know? That's the other two. And at a different point, I feel, if I may just very quickly just add to this allyship conversation, as a South Asian,
Please.
especially like as a non-Black person of color, I think that one of the struggles within my own community is like trying to give historical context to people so that it roots them in understanding like the benefits that our communities have gotten because of the civil rights movement, because specifically of Black people. And so, and oftentimes that's not enough. Like people are like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I think that where I get a little bit more headway is in gathering with other South Asians who are curious and and telling South Asians, don't ask Black people. Stop asking Black people how to show up as allies. And I get so angry because I'm like, there's Google, there's resources, there's all this stuff at our fingertips. And it's stuff that Black people have written. There's stuff that, do you know what I'm saying? So I think that when Samson says like, we just need to listen and active listening, absolutely. And I think that part of it is wanting to like, go just seek it out. Stop asking people to be your Google around racism, especially Black people. And if you're South Asian, there are South Asian organizations. You just have to do a quick Google and they pop up and they have like lots of literature, lots of talks, lots of things. So in that same regard, I say that to cis people, and in regards to trans and non-binary people, and any which way that you know that you're in the powerful standing in a dynamic, just do your work. We all have work to do, and we're gonna mess it up.
Perfect, beautifully said. Jamari, so at you, what is the, knowing after everything that you've achieved now in television, because I just named a couple of his television credits, he has more. With everything that you've been able to achieve and everything like that, what advice would you give to you before you came out?
I would tell me to stay focused, never let anyone's point of view of you change who you are. Stay goal-oriented, keep your eye on the prize, and love yourself unconditionally, no matter how people treat you.
Perfectly said again. And Samson, same question.
Oh, I would have told my younger self to wait and come out in 2021, okay? Because you come out now, you're gonna get a TV show, okay? I'm jealous of Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X, he got a little fruit arrangement from the Obamas. Oprah invited him to lunch and he got a Visa endorsement deal, okay? All I got was prayer when I came out. That's some bull, okay? And I still owe Visa some money. So I would have told myself that. No, I'm playing, but I would, the thing about it is as you grow, you really learn all the things that your parents missed teaching you growing up. You learn all the things that you didn't get to experience growing up, like if you were sheltered as a child the way I was. And so I think my advice for myself would have been really simple. And it would just be to be exactly who you are and be okay with learning as you go along. Really simple.
Wonderful. So everybody please give it up for the panel. We can't hear you, but we can see you moving your hands, so we do appreciate that. At this portion of the program, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to questions. You can go ahead and put your question in the chat, or you could raise your hand. So I'm looking to see if I see any hands. No questions for the panel.
I have a question, and
Right.
this is for anyone. Just as a student, we hear a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I really don't want, to focus just on, although this is a panel of color, pride and color, I really do want just focus on just being a student, right? Being a student from the LGBTQ plus community, um, that has experienced discrimination, what advice would you give to them on their educational journey? Quote unquote, education is supposed to be a liberal community or an inclusive community, and we've been hearing a lot of that. But as the director of race equity and social justice, I would like to know specifically what would put you at peace and calm to know that there is someone on campus that you can reach out wholeheartedly, and I guess what you call family. I want to be a part of the family, to be supportive for them. And that's for anyone.
In what sense are you actually? Because I feel like saying what you just said and being that person to be supportive, I think is the most important thing. If you ever encounter, or if people encounter that, I feel like just trying to find support within that would be the best thing to do, because a lot of us usually don't have support, which is why we hold on to so much stuff. So I feel like if we have someone to talk to, like trying to build something of that nature to where, like, if they do go through something like this, there's a place that they can go and talk to other people about it, and not to talk about it and make it very bad, but to talk about it and find peace with it versus like, just sitting there gossiping about it, just finding peace and understanding, people aren't always going to be okay with who you are as a person, and we have to be okay with that.
Thank you.
And it looks like we have a question from Kenny Simpkins.
Hello, this is for Jamari. Congratulations on your win, that in the House of Balmain as well. I watch Legendary and big fan of Pose as well. For the people in our room today here that are visiting with us, can you kind of explain a little more what ballroom is? I know, like, to white people or to heterosexual people, ballroom might be like ballroom dancing, and that's nothing of what ballroom is. And we're watching season 2 right now, and I just love the show and what it represents and the community specifically that it represents. So just for the people that are in our town hall today that don't know what ballroom is, can you just kind of break it down for people?
Cool. So typically I say it like this. The most easiest way to explain it is like the gay Olympics. There is a number of categories that people compete in depending on cash or trophies. It's literally like it's hard to explain. But like I say, the simplest way to explain it is like the gay Olympics. There's different categories that people compete in. So there's realness, there's sex siren, there's runway, there's performance, there's face, there's bizarre, there's best dressed. There's so many categories within that Olympics that we compete in. And we go to explain a house is like a sorority. So different houses are like sororities. There's always the upper, and then you have the kids. So in a house, you have parents, which are the mother and the father. Some houses only have a mother, some houses only have a father. They're like real families. A lot of them are based on different areas that you live in. Like, I'm the West Coast father of the House of Balmain, but my higher up is the overall father of the House of Balmain. So that's pretty much how you explain the house. It's like a sorority. You have the parents, and the parents trickle down into the kids. Balls are literally the gay Olympics. There's different competitions different levels to the competition that they have.
For sure. They're very fun. If you haven't been to one, Jamari's organization, Reach LA, hosts an annual one. That's really great because there's a lot of civic-minded, kind of people that attend that. It's called the Ovenus Ball. Are you guys planning it for 2021?
Yes, we just finished planning everything. It's going to be December 11th at the Glow in downtown LA.
Can you put it in the chat?
Sure.
Yes. And it looks like we have a question from Phoebe.
Hi, this is a question for all or any of the panelists. I just wanted to ask if perhaps like you wanted to share when was a moment in your life where you felt seen, right? Because that I think that's such a transformative, powerful moment that a lot of us kind of like have, right? After feeling kind of confused or just sort of alone. Like when was a moment when you really felt seen, validated, heard, like really here and just appreciated for everything that you are?
Oh, well, I'll answer that and I'll be very honest. As a person, just overall as a person, I've never felt loved, seen, or heard. And I do think that's one of the reasons why I am an artist, a comedian, is because for that moment, I'm there connecting with people and I know people hear me, right? At home I was ignored, and I would go to school and I would act out because I would finally be seen. And so I think for me, in my experience, it's being out in the community, doing those comedy shows and laughing with those folks about things that really bother us all, things that hurt, things that confuse us, things that, are absurd, all the different things that make us laugh. And then being there one-on-one with other people in the community who feel exactly the same way that I felt and letting them know that I see them and it's like we see each other, and then it creates like these transformative moments. And I have to do that over and over again. And I think it's just something that you continually have to do. I think it's a continuous journey of self-discovery.
Wow. And then did anyone else from the panel wanna
I'll chime in.
Yeah.
For me, it was, I guess, when I booked my first music video when I was 17. I booked Christina Aguilera Dirty, but it opened my eyes because I had wanted to be a dancer for so long and I had been rejected so many times. And the one time I decided to give up, I had a friend of mine push me and tell me like, no, you're worth it. You can do it. Go to this audition. And I went to the audition, I booked the job. And I think I was so busy not understanding myself and not seeing myself that other people saw me. So I guess him pushing me made me see that people do watch me, whether it's not myself or my family, but my friends around me, they all see me. So I had to understand that because you see me, that, I had to see myself. So I guess that was the moment when I realized that people do notice me.
That's beautiful. And I want to just piggyback off of what both of my family was saying. I also feel like performance has been where I have been seen clearly. The stage is so sacred of a place for queer people that it is that. And it's a beautiful thing to hear these two other panelists talk about art as being the thing that has allowed them personally, like it's in their expression of art that they've been seen as people, that they felt seen, that they felt like that glory of just being able to be on this planet. Oftentimes that's not the case when we don't, like, this is why representation is so important, because queer people are magical creative beings. And this is our joy, this is our sacredness.
Wonderful. And I saw Melissa Robles that had her hand up. Did you have a question or if you did, put it back up. We want to hear from everyone. Let me check the chat and make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. I just did want to add, as an artist turned student, academia has also that similar opportunity to, allow you to feel seen and allow you to play up to your abilities. And so I just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. If there aren't any other questions, I'm going to.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Sorry. And I guess this is for all the panelists. And I'll just give you a little bit of history about me. My brother, he came out to me when he was 17 years old. We were really close. I'm like the girly girl or whatever you want to call it. And I had this like bunch of Cabbage Patch dolls. I used to always have this collection of Cabbage Patch balls, right? And I would leave the house and he would play with my Cabbage Patch dolls, right? And I would just get so upset with him playing with my Cabbage Patch doll after I finished doing their hair or whatever. But a long story short, by the time he got to like 15 or whatever, we would be like tussling with my Cabbage Patch dolls. And he came out to me, and it was just our little secret until he came of age. It helped me understand what he was going through. And then he's like 4 years younger than me. And then when I moved out to college and I had my own little place, he moved in with me. And so he and I would talk. He's very familiar with you, Jamari. He says you know him, but and so he and I would talk about the balls and his family and his fathers and stuff like that. But as a heterosexual person, even with him, I never felt comfortable getting to understand the dynamics of the support system that's behind all that. And I hear the designer names and everything, and of course I'm impressed with the designer names, but I never understood how that all came about and how the support, and of course he's a dancer as well, how that support came. And again, I'm getting emotional right now, but and we use this term ally lightly, right? And I think oftentimes we use the term, as a heterosexual person, we use the term ally, and we assume that because we may throw a pride parade or a pride event or just anything to show support, oftentimes it's not as authentic as I am assuming that it should be, and the empathy is not there. And I kind of equate it to, and I apologize if I offend anyone, when oftentimes people say, oh, I have a Black friend, or I have a this friend. So how would how would we, or me as the director of race, equity, and social justice, build a platform that allows for people from the community to feel authentic or in their space, and just as I said before, like just welcomed. I apologize, you all, I've been emotional, but yeah.
I love that you're getting emotional. That's really, really dope. That means you're passionate. But for me personally, I feel like I love Pride, but to me, I don't really care for Pride because it's a month of people praising us, and then as soon as this month is over, they really don't care. And not to say all people, but that's just how I feel sometimes. So I feel like I want to be celebrated throughout the year. I want everybody to understand me as a person 365 days, not just for this month of the time that everyone's screaming Pride and wearing rainbow colors. I think the most important thing to do is to celebrate them throughout. Don't just wait till Pride events to be vocal about it. And as far as like the family and stuff goes, when you say like how does it come about? It comes about from like what you just did. It becomes an emotional thing for people to understand and people to see that is what people want to see. We want to see that. I would rather see that every day of my life than to see rainbow Pride and people giving me stuff to promote for Pride. I don't really care to do all that. Of course, I do it because that's who I am and that is my platform. But I would rather be around people that are emotionally stable enough to support me mentally. So just being able to be there and support people mentally, I think is the best thing you can do. And, and don't just make it one-sided. Don't just make it, I don't want it to just be about Black. I want it to be about Asian. I want it to be about Latin. I want it to be about white. Yes, white people get it a little bit easier, but I feel like it becomes a problem when we segregate. And I feel like that's not human. And I feel like a lot of us don't really see that a lot of the times because we're so focused on our own race that we don't see that there are people outside of our race that really do care, that really do want to help. So just focus on everything and everyone and don't make it about pride, make it about humanity. And I think that'll be the best way to do that.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, and to follow up, with Jamari, it's basically Pride is not what it was. Pride now is a big money grab. It's like the church. They just do something to take the money out your pocket. And most real gay people don't even like the rainbow. So, there's that.
Hate it.
It doesn't match anything. Okay. I think the most effective way as someone in leadership, though, is to use that platform to elevate queer voices and also to pay those queer voices if you can. This is something that I've noticed with Pride, since we're talking about Pride, is that Pride is something it's for the LGBTQ community, but very rarely do they bring in queer artists and queer voices and pay them. They'll bring in, reality TV stars. They'll bring in old disco singers from the 70s who can't sing no more. They'll bring in all kinds of crazy stuff. Everybody except for people who actually live the experience. And when we are invited in, it's usually in a limited capacity and they want us to do free labor. So I think providing spaces where you hear authentic queer voices and compensating them is really effective. And pouring resources into the community, any resources that you can.
Absolutely. I feel like a fix, because I had been asked this question too. And speaking of rainbows, I started recently liking rainbows because it was the only signifier that made me stand out as queer. Because now that I'm passing, I was like, oh great, everybody gonna think that I'm cis now. So I started slapping rainbows everywhere. But anyway, I talked to a couple of colleges about this, and I was like, especially when it comes to DEI work or employee resource groups or whatever, and like everybody wanting to do the right thing at these corporations to whatever. And I totally agree with what both of the panelists were talking about Pride being corporate, and it's like but then like for a lot of us, this is also like where we get paid the most. Because July, all of a sudden we're forgotten, like as quick as that, but I think that what is important is to celebrate everybody, is to sort of understand that programming isn't just relegated to that month. Like I started asking colleges to have at least one queer program thing a month, so that it doesn't feel like everything's squashed in June, but that we're continuing a conversation, and I think that this thing about being able to speak authentically, what Samson was talking about, is so important, because oftentimes it's like there are queer people who you are like, please don't say what that thing, like that's almost like Caitlyn Jenner, as trans as she is somebody who is very, very much like on a whole nother level that a bunch of trans people are like, please don't say that, like that's not helping our situation here, So it's about like who gets a seat at the table, who's doing the work. And there's so many grassroots organizers and really community-minded artists that are like so wickedly intelligent, not just from their creation of art, but also emotionally, that I oftentimes tell people, like, if you ever have problems looking for people, talk to us, because we have the artists that we love and we keep them close to us because they help us. They like, meaning help us in the chosen family way.
Wow. Are there any other questions? Well, this was incredible. I want to thank the work group for trusting me with inviting the panelists. I really, really appreciate that. I hope to join more formally next year. I also want to thank all of our panelists: Dilo, Samson, Jamari.
Oh, real quick, can we share our information so folks can continue to follow us?
You sure can. Let's go ahead and start with you, Samson.
Okay, so y'all got to come out to one of my comedy shows. You'll have a wonderful time. You can follow me on Instagram at Samson McCormick. It's just my name, like on the screen. or you can call me at 202. I'm just playing, but no, but follow me on Instagram, and happy Pride, and thank you for being here.
Wonderful. And that information is also in the chat, and I think Phoebe will probably repost it. Dilo, where can people keep up with?
I was actually trying to repost it off of the thing, but my copy and paste is not working it for some reason, and I accidentally private messaged Samson a bunch of numbers by accident. That's not my phone number, Samson. You have my phone number. My handle is in the thing too. It's at DLocokid, DLOCOKID. That's my website. It's my YouTube. It's my whatever. And I can attest that Samson's show is always a damn good time. You are gonna laugh your ass off.
And Jamari, where can people keep up with your movement? Reach LA and everything else.
You can find me on Instagram. That's me. I put it in the chat, so you can go ahead and see that. And just follow my journey through life, my dancing, my modeling, and all that good stuff.
Dang it, I put mine in the chat too. Follow me too, darn it. All right, thank you guys so much. Next up, we have Kenny Simpkins. Take it away, Kenny.
Thank you very much. This has been an amazing panel. I just want to say thank you to everyone for sharing your stories and getting to spend the last 2 hours with you. It was magical, so thank you. I want to first start off by giving a big thank you to Dr. Gallagher and our entire administration for creating events like LACC Pride and our weekly town hall discussions, where we can come together and share our thoughts and lived experiences revolving around important issues such as Black Lives Matter and stopping Asian hate, just to name a few. I have a lot of pride being able to work for an institution that celebrates diversity, equity, inclusion for all, and that begins at the top. Where amazing people like Dr. Gallagher and her team are consistent in making sure that there's visibility and representation for everyone. We wouldn't be the amazing college campus we are without you, and for that, Dr. Gallagher, I thank you. We also really can't talk about gay pride without acknowledging where our movement first began. So in Wanda Sykes' video, she mentioned an influential person, Marsha P. Johnson. She mentioned a historic bar, the Stonewall Inn, and she also mentioned an important date, June 28th, 1969. I want to tell you a little more about Marsha P. Johnson. Marsha P. Johnson was an activist, self-identified drag queen, performer, and survivor. She was a prominent figure in the Stonewall Uprising of 1969. Marsha went by Black Marsha before settling on Marsha P. Johnson. And the P stood for Pay It No Mind, which is what Marsha would say in response to questions about her gender. I also want to tell you about another prominent figure of the gay rights movement, and her name is Sylvia Rivera. She's a veteran of the 1969 Stonewall Inn uprising, and Sylvia was a tireless advocate for those silenced and disregarded by larger movements. Throughout her life, she fought against the exclusion of transgender people, especially transgender people of color, from the larger movements that happened around gay rights. In 1963, Sylvia and Marsha met, and it changed their lives. They were both battling exclusion in a movement for gay rights that did not embrace their gender expression. Sylvia describes Marsha as being like a mother to her. The two of them were actively involved in the Stonewall Inn uprising on June 28th, 1969, when patrons of the inn fought back against a police raid and set a new tone for the gay rights movement. Rivera said in an interview in 2001 that while she did not throw the first Molotov cocktail at the police, and that's a big myth, everyone thinks that that's what happened, she did throw the second one. And for 6 nights, the 17-year-old Sylvia refused to go home or to sleep, saying, "I'm not going to miss a minute of this. It's the revolution." The Stonewall Inn uprising was also a turning point in the visibility of the gay rights movement. The first gay pride parade started in 1970, but Sylvia and other transgendered people were discriminated against and discouraged from participating. In 1973, Sylvia participated in the gay pride parade, but was not allowed to speak, despite the amount of work and advocacy that she had done. In true Sylvia fashion, she grabbed the microphone anyway, telling spectators and the other marchers that attended the event that if it wasn't for the drag queens, there would be no gay liberation movement. We are the frontliners. She was then booed off the stage. So I want to take this opportunity and give thanks to Marcia, Sylvia, and to all the activists, specifically the transgendered women of color that have paved the way and made incredible sacrifices for the rights that we have today as LGBTQIA individuals. I wouldn't be the out and proud gay man that I am if it wasn't for them and all the others that preceded them. I feel a responsibility to pay it forward, which is one of the reasons why I'm here today. So what does pride mean to me? I thought a lot about this question, and this is what I came up with. Pride means promoting self-affirmation, dignity, and equal rights for all people. It's a time for people from all walks of life to stop and reflect on what it means to be truly accepting and to be accepted, and the peaceful, positive effects that this can have on everybody that's around us. Pride is a reminder that we shouldn't feel ashamed and that we should actually celebrate who we are. I am able to do this because of both my immediate family and my chosen family. And when I say immediate family, I'm talking about my mother, my brother, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. When I say my chosen family, I'm referring to my fellow LGBTQIA friends that have supported and uplifted me from day one, before I was able to come out to my immediate family. And for a lot of us, we only have a chosen family. Many have been rejected by their immediate family members and seek others to fill that void. Our chosen families are the ones that love us unconditionally, without regard, and are instrumental in our survival and our success. I want everyone here to know that LACC is also part of your chosen family. There are LGBTQIA faculty, staff members, and administrators that see you and want you to know that you matter. I, along with everyone else on this panel, want you to know that you matter. And I want to say that again. You matter, and you are seen. And for those of you that are seeking additional resources and support, I want to take a minute to highlight the Los Angeles LGBT Center and their social networking groups. So some of the groups include, there's a coming out group. So there's 3 different types of coming out groups, one for men, one for women, and there's also a third one for trans and non-binary. We have a 30 and over lesbian chat. There's Biosphere for the bisexual community. There's a group called Flex, and this supports our Latinx members, families, and allies, and it's conducted completely in Spanish. There's Club Intersex for our intersexed individuals. We have another a group called Her Stories, and that's for women and those connected that want to connect with their femininity. There's another group called Hablemos, and that's general support group. And again, that group is all for Spanish speaking. And then there's a transgendered perceptions group where trans people can come together for support as well. I keep saying we, like I work at the center. My husband actually works at the center. So I feel like in part I kind of do as well. So these are all groups, not at Los Angeles City College, but they are conducted at the Los Angeles LGBT Center. And one of the great things about these support groups is, especially during COVID, you know, everything shut down. So everything had to go online. And, you know, all these support groups are conducted via Zoom. And one of the greatest outcomes of COVID, in my opinion, is the accessibility to these groups, because you know, there's a lot of, you know, LGBTQIA folks that are maybe in the closet, or they're in a neighborhood or a living situation where they're not able to step outside of their home, or physically are not physically able to come to a group because they might have, you know, a specific ailment. And now that these groups are all on Zoom, the audience or the participation of the group members has increased tremendously. And the LA LGBT Center has been able to reach people, you know, across the globe during COVID. And I just feel that's an amazing support and resource available, you know, not only just to the Los Angeles community, but to surrounding communities as well. So I just wanted to put that in, and I'll drop in the chat. I have a flyer for the LA LGBT Center that has all these groups on there. And I also just want to say thank you to Dilo, Jamari, and Samson for sharing your stories. Again, I feel privileged and honored to be able to be in your presence and to be able to, you know, hear your journeys. And I want to give another shout out to Dr. Gallagher and everyone else that supports our LGBTQIA students, our faculty and our staff. So thank you and happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride, y'all.
Thank you
you.
so much. And if you all, again, everything has been dropped into the chat box. And again, thank you all. And we look forward to seeing you all in October for coming out. So thank you and have a great one.
Thank you for
Bye,
having me.
everyone.
Happy Pride.
Big shout out to Dr. Barry for leading this effort.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Barry. Thank you, Phoebe.
Thank you.
Happy Pride, everyone.